being human and the news. There are just so many stories this week that seem relevant to the Being Human project, and I just want to pick up a few of them. And part of that is just to say we believe, again, this fundamental question of what it is to be human is perhaps the most contested and important in our culture. So you've had a whole lot of news stories around the England football team and the boos when they took the new knee around racism. And we've reached the point where even again this kind of stand against racism is contested because of the ideology of the Black Lives Matter movement, and yet the support for the anti-racism stance of the players. You've got another sporting story of Ollie Robinson, who's the England cricketer, and he had his test debut, I think, and played well, but then these tweets from 8 or 9 years ago came out, and they were sexist, and they were racist, and they were appalling. And he's apologised for them, and rightly so, but now he's been indefinitely suspended. He's been essentially cancelled. Because our culture doesn't quite know what to do with forgiveness. How do you move on when you make a mistake in the past? Then we've got the case of Maya Forstater. She was fired from her job for stating some realities around biological sex. And an employment tribunal said, yep, she should have been fired, that's fine. She's taken that to the High Court. She did that with the support of the Equality and Human Rights Commission, and she has actually won her case. And so we're seeing a little bit of a shift in culture around what you can state about biological realities, what it is to be male and what it is to be female. And then perhaps the one I want to focus on for a moment is this Ofsted report around the realities, the normalization of sexual harassment in our schools. Absolutely just incredible, unbelievable findings about what's going on. That people are being taught RSE or RSHE, depending on your context, around relationships and sex education. They're getting some of the information, but the kids say not enough. But what they're not being taught at all is what's acceptable and what's unacceptable. There's no values or framework around it. They're saying this is what it is, various sex acts and whatever, but not what's acceptable. And so what the reports have found is you've got a whole series of young people, girls in particular, who are saying they're having to educate the boys, they're having to go to their peers, they're having to go to social media to find any kind of framework for what is or is they should or should not be doing. When they report incidents of sexual harassment, schools aren't taking them seriously. They're saying, well, boys will be boys, that's just the way it is. And there's a whole series of findings. The Daily Mail have done a follow-up poll on what's going on. So you have 31% of people who are engaging in sexual activity with somebody they haven't even kissed. And it's just the bizarre nature of our world, the hypersexualization of what's going on, and no value system and no framework sitting in behind it. And so for us as a project, we're saying every single person is a divine image bearer. Everybody has value and dignity for that reason. We are made for right relationships. What do those relationships look like? We want to lean into that because relationships are for flourishing. So we want to talk about race and gender and sex, biological sex and the act of sex, and what right relationships look like. We want to talk about what it is to move towards a flourishing culture and what forgiveness looks like. We live in a post-truth world that really struggles to know what to do except to cancel somebody. It has a very limited or no lens for grace and mercy and forgiveness. And so we kind of conclude this little look at news by signposting you a piece that Rich has written about what it is to be made in the image of God, what it is to come into relationship with Jesus. It doesn't make us all into little Jesus bots. What Rich is saying is to be filled with the Holy Spirit. Everybody's created in the image of God. We are then called to follow Jesus, and then we are filled with the Holy Spirit. If we accept that call, we are commissioned in a particular time and place to bring about the kingdom, to be part of church communities where we are conformed into the likeness of Jesus, where we learn to forgive, where we have and extend and receive mercy and grace in our own lives. We believe this is the most profound question. We hope you'll continue to join us on the journey of what it means to be human. Be blessed.